order. First of all, I want to unofficially welcome our intrepid traveler who got here all the way from DC. Congratulations. I'd like to call the meeting to order, the January 14th meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Washington to order. The first item of business is some resolutions, and what I'd like to do is start with a resolution that the town, I would propose that the town council pass. I'm going to read this resolution. Resolution honoring Jerry Goebel for his service to the town. Whereas Jerry Goebel was appointed to the Town Council of the Town of Washington on October 10, 2001, and then was appointed treasurer on July 1st, 2002, and served as such until December 31, 2018. And whereas during his 17 years as treasurer, he ably and conscientiously guided the town's finances, including dealing with the challenges of the Great Recession from 2000 to 2010, and whereas during his tenure, his responsibilities as treasurer were greatly expanded with the construction, operation, and maintenance of the town's wastewater treatment system, the largest infrastructure project in the town's history. And whereas during his tenure, despite challenging periods, he maintained a good credit and full faith of all town obligations, including the cost and operation of the town wastewater system, the largest financial obligation ever incurred by the town. And whereas during his tenure, the existing and new obligations of the town were reduced or retired, much to the ongoing financial strength and strategy of the town. And whereas in addition to his services as treasurer, he lent a hand in many day-to-day tasks, advanced new street signs for the town, and worked to ensure the town was well presented with its events. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Washington, Virginia, that the Honorable Jerry Goebel, Treasurer of the Town of Washington, Virginia, as aforesaid, is hereby recognized for his able and conscientious service to the town and its citizens, and for his protection and furtherance of the good credit of the town, its ability to honor and to give full faith of all obligations which were incurred or presented. The town and its citizens also extend their earnest thanks for his service and the lasting benefits which accrue to the town and its citizens. This resolution shall be maintained among the permanent records of the town. I would move that this resolution be passed by the Town Council. May I have a second?
A second.
Second by Mary Ann. All those, do we need to do a roll call? Yeah. All right. I have a roll call, Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right. It is duly adopted by a roll call vote for the Town Council of Washington, Virginia on the 14th of January 2019. Mr. Goebel, will you please come forward? I want to note that normally Mr. Goebel would be the one who would yell and chastise anybody for knocking over the recorder. I have a further resolution to present to the council tonight. Resolution in honor of Mayor John Fox Sullivan. Whereas John Fox Sullivan, through great devotion to the town of Washington, Virginia, served on the Architectural Review Board from February 6, 2006 until his appointment to Town Council on February 26, 2007, and then served as a Town Council member until June 30, 2010. And he was then elected and served as mayor from July 1, 2010 to December 31, 2018. And whereas during his tenure as Town Council person, the town implemented a wastewater treatment system and designated a sewer service district, the largest infrastructure project in the town's history, integrating the significant new infrastructure with the goals of the town's comprehensive plan with approximately 110 buildings connecting to the system. And whereas during his tenure as mayor, approximately 37 structures were significantly renovated, which included the establishment of new businesses, enhancing the town as a destination, providing additional amenities to its citizens. And whereas during his tenure as mayor, after receiving the views of interested parties and the formation of a committee to advance its disposition, the Avon Hall property was sold with covenants to protect it as a significant structure and property for all the town and as an important gateway. And whereas during his tenure, the comprehensive plan was revised after much public input and diligent and conscientious work by the Planning Commission, embodied new approaches to allow the town to move forward and adapt in the times to come while preserving its precious historic heritage. And whereas during his tenure, the mayor built upon and furthered the atmosphere of openness, accessibility, and congeniality among all the town. And whereas during his tenure, the mayor invited and encouraged participation, strategic thinking and planning for the town through citizen participation and mature consideration of many possible solutions to issues the town would address. And whereas during his tenure, the portion of a stub street was exchanged with the inn at Little Washington for significant improvements to the main intersection of the commercial district of the town, so as to significantly enhance the fabric and attractiveness of the town. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Washington, Virginia, that the Honorable John Fox Sullivan, Mayor of the Town of Washington, Virginia, as aforesaid, is hereby recognized for his devoted, considered, and congenial service to the town and its citizens, and for the many exemplary benefits and accomplishments to the town which he advanced and facilitated during his tenure, a few of which are set forth above. And to this end, the town and its citizens do hereby extend their sincere thanks for his selfless service and the vision brought to the town, which will endure as his legacy among all those who reside in or visit the town. This resolution shall be maintained among the permanent records of the town. I would like to make a motion to adopt this resolution. May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Roll call vote, Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Sullivan, ex-mayor Sullivan,
He's on.
Citizen Sullivan, would you please come forward? This is a picture of the town of Little Washington, and it has a plaque, an appreciation, John Fox Sullivan, Mayor 2010 to 2018, Washington, with great thanks.
Thank you. Well, I gave my little speech a month ago. But I will say this, Rachel will say, I can't even know I really do want to thank you all, I appreciate it. You actually might imagine. And it's been an honor and pleasure and to serve the town and work with people and all the folks that are here, and greatly appreciative of the opportunity to do it. Beverly and I will hang out here in town and still walk the streets and try and stay out of trouble.
Jerry and Joan, thank you again so much for all that you have done. At this point, it's time to do an appointment for a vice mayor. And I would like to open up the floor for any nominations from the town council for the position of vice mayor. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to nominate Mary Ann to continue as vice mayor, as she has the experience on the town council and as vice mayor.
there a second?
I'll second.
Are there? I'm not sure I'm ready to ask.
Patrick got that
All right, I'll get it, Patrick. I dare ask, are there any other nominations? Not hearing any other nominations, then we have a nomination. I will go ahead and close nominations, and we have a nomination that I put forth to the council, and again, a roll call vote, I assume?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
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 You had to do
Yes.
something.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody. I just want to say I will do my utmost to uphold the duties of this office. I appreciate your vote of confidence.
We are honored to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing it. We have minutes. We have the minutes from October 8th. Are there any changes or corrections? I have one on the first page, which I'll get to you. It's Wayne Sillenberg.
I didn't spell it right?
No, it's with a G at the end. And he's the former director of planning for Albemarle County. I'll go ahead and pass this down to you.
I just had a couple little typos and things, but nothing of substance. And I went to add Ron's name for Ron Frazier on the page. Never mind, that was on the next one. Basically just,
Just an editorial. Okay.
and also is Kenner Love Kenner or Kenner?
Kenner.
Is it? That's right, okay, so we have to change that. First time I've ever heard that one.
Are there any other changes to the October minutes? Can I have a motion for their approval?
Can I second?
Schneider, Ms. Kuhn seconds. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The November 12, 2018 minutes are in front of you. Are there any additions or corrections?
I have just one correction, it's in a way sort of funny. On page 4, where it says number 6, number C, it says Mr. Catman made a motion to offer for sale the 2-story frame structure, and then it goes, who voted what? Mr. Catman voted yes, Ms. Leggett voted yes, Mr. Goebel voted yes, and Mayor Leggett voted yes.
Chance, I don't know what that was about.
Probably a Freudian slip.
Okay, that was really
He
good.
would have voted yes.
And then on page 1, I would just put in Ron's name for Ron Frazier.
Okay.
And on the second paragraph, just where it says, we thank Gary Goebel, just a treasurer, Gary Goebel.
I have one change on page 3, because he is a good friend of mine, I can jest about this, but Mr. H.O. makes many comments, but he did make a commendment. He commended the town, rather than commented.
Yes, he did.
Any other changes? Do I have a motion to pass these minutes? All right, second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second?
Catherine moved. All right. One of the things that we're going to have, starting now, under my tenure, is that I will try to take any of the comments, any of the updates, and provide them in a mayor's report at the beginning of the meeting. But today I'd like to take a minute and just make a few comments so that people perhaps have a better understanding of what I hope to do as mayor. It is an honor and a privilege to take on the responsibility of mayor of Little Washington. It is a daunting role, given the standards of success set by my predecessors, John Sullivan, Gene Leggett, and the many other good people who have served in this role. I want to highlight that term, serve. It is through service that I feel personal satisfaction. We are servants of the town, not vice versa. While there are ceremonial responsibilities with this office, they are not why I chose to serve. Working with my fellow town council members to meet the needs and wants of our town community while preserving the town's character and values, the reasons why we choose to live in Little Washington in the first place. This is why I serve. This town is at a crucible, navigating between growth and preservation. If we are to grow and become more vibrant, if we are to improve the quality of living within the town, if we are to preserve all that makes Little Washington the gem that it is, then we must plan thoughtfully and move expeditiously. Maintaining an appropriate balance while ensuring ample participation in the deliberative process by our citizens is the essence of what I seek. There must be transparency in all we do, ensuring that the public is able to participate in every step on important discussions and decisions of the town. Unlike some of the past occupants of this chair, I am not retired. I have a full-time business that I own and run. Despite that responsibility, I am committed to provide the necessary time to address the town's issues and meet with members of the community. I want to be accessible to you. It is for that reason that I am scheduling a coffee with the mayor on the first Saturday of every month to be held here in Town Hall from 9 to 11 in the morning. Feel free to drop in and visit a while. I am fortunate to be working with a town council filled with smart, experienced people who are doing this work and sacrificing their free time for the benefit of the community. I am deeply grateful to have such a strong and committed group of co-workers. Together, we look forward to serving this town and helping to ensure that it is one of the finest small towns in America. So, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say that. All right, treasurer's report.
Hey, everybody. Okay, looking at the summary for the month, the general fund is at $100,410.89 with a total consolidated assets of $446,407.19. Total consolidated assets for Washington Water Works, $3,640.24. And for the wastewater works, $5,396.11. We also have attached here the bills to be paid list, as well as the additional ones that came in just within the last few days. Are there any questions on any of them?
I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I make a motion.
All right, Mary Ann moves and Joe seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye.
Just for future, just so everybody knows, I'm not going to sit here and read numbers every month, because you all get in the papers and you can look at them. So if you would just, I'll ask if there are any questions, and I'll point out anything that's over and above the normal salaries and expenses, so if we have anything unusual coming up.
I understand that. I was just thinking of it for the recording that the Rat News is doing and for the minutes and things.
No, I have.
Or for this, for our recording here.
I don't think we need it, because we've got the paper.
Okay.
These are attached to the minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
They're all,
Okay.
these all become parts of the minutes.
In the future, the dark color block is very hard to read. It sort of blurs on you.
We can eliminate that.
That would be,
That's easy.
yeah, good.
That's the scope of the contract.
Too bad. All things aren't that simple.
All right. Anything else from the treasurer? Okay. Planning Commission, any report from?
No, I think we'll address address that in the next session.
Will there be a planning commission meeting this month?
I beg your pardon?
Will there be a planning commission meeting this month?
I think we'll see if we can schedule one, but we may slip to February given that we're having that.
Well, just
Joint
remember,
effort.
I have to send a notice to paper by next Monday.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that, thank you.
All right, Architectural Review Board, I have not heard anything from them. I doubt there is a report therefore.
They had no applications this month.
Okay, no applications this month. Mr. Bennett?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I see we have before us an organizational resolution. Should we address that now? John, should we address that now?
Yes, I'm sorry. The next question, the mayor called and said, could we set over this meeting because of the weather for a week or so? And I looked into it, and you have to have this document adopted at your organizational meeting to be able to do it. So it's sort of a catch-22. This was the organization, is the organizational meeting. So the option of continuing it over public hearings was not on the table. So choices were proceed with the meeting tonight or put it off till the next meeting and re-advertise and start all over again. So here we are. But with this document, if there's inclement weather or whatever, the mayor, or in his absence, the vice mayor, can continue the meeting, give notice concurrently to the members of council and the press, and post it on the website if it's functioning, and then it will be set over automatically to the next regular meeting.
So we don't have to come here for 2 seconds, start the meeting, and have it continue.
Yeah.
I have a question. If there was something on the agenda that had to be dealt with before the next meeting, can you continue it with consensus of the council to some other date later?
Well,
I'm just,
I
it has happened.
Yeah, I picked the next regular meeting date because when we try to set a date in between, it seems like it's hard to get everybody together sometimes. So that's why I said the next date. And once you put it in there and adopt it, you got to use it. So you'd have to call a special meeting if that were the case.
Okay, so this has happened, so I want to make sure I understand how that works. So if they wanted to call a special meeting, do you have to poll all the council members ahead? I mean, we have had to do that at least one time.
I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's the mayor or 3 members of council.
Okay, I just want to make sure I know what to do.
Do we need to put that in the resolution?
No, it's already adopted. I just don't have it.
I will save the audience by not reading this entire resolution to you. I think you've heard enough of my voice tonight. The essential points of the resolution are that the regular council meeting shall be on the second Monday of each month, beginning at 7 p.m. If meetings fall on a legal holiday, they'll be continued to the following Tuesday without further action. The mayor, if he is unable to act, the vice mayor may continue a meeting due to special circumstances such as weather. And that was the point that we were talking about. The mayor or vice mayor in his absence may continue any public hearings, whether at a regular, special, or joint meeting with the planning commission to the next regular meeting of the town council. Those are the main points of this. I want to give the town council another brief moment to read through this.
Item 2, so if the legal holiday is Monday, should be continued the following Tuesday, being the next day or the week after that?
The next day.
The next day.
Next business day. Yeah.
Okay, so
So
that's,
I know councils always sort of pick dates when there's a holiday if they want to continue it. But if you adopt these organizational, this resolution, according to the code, you have to take it over to the next day.
That's fine, it's the wording, just to make sure that it's clear. So if our meeting, item 1 says the meeting will be held on Monday. Item 2 says if Monday is a holiday, then the meeting shall be held on the very next day, which is Tuesday, not 7 days henceforth.
Yes.
And if you don't have a quorum available the next day, what's the next option?
Goes to the next meeting.
That
Yes.
you can't schedule another meeting.
You should do a special meeting.
Special meeting. It's called special.
Okay.
Any other questions? These are all good questions.
Do you think we should change that, John, to put to the next day on here so it's clear? I mean,
To the next business day?
yeah,
Yeah.
because I had the same question. It was unclear.
So for the minutes, point 2 is it shall be continued to the next business day without further action by the council of any type. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Thank you. Second? Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Oh, wait.
No, roll call.
Roll call, I'm sorry. Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. It is approved. All right. Mr. Bennett, anything else?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
All right. So I have,
Mr. Mayor, although I
gave you those things to pass on, those other resolutions, they have to come down and be signed by everybody.
Oh,
Well, you can't sign this one until we rewrite it.
yeah.
Could you sign the back page?
Sign those.
Should we sign this?
No.
No, all I need is just your signature.
Okay, we'll get the rest of that squared away. Mr. O'Connell has to leave for a few minutes. We'll be back at the meeting. All right, I would like to have a motion to open a public hearing to discuss the draft planned unit development ordinance. Mr. Bennett, help me here.
don't need a motion, it's advertised, it's on the agenda.
All right, then I am opening a public hearing. And I invite members of the planning commission to please come forward. Fill the seats.
So, as I understand it, we do this sequentially. We open it for the planning commission. I'm opening this, you have to call, I'll call the meeting to order and open the public hearing and take a roll.
Alan Comp.
Judy Desarno, Bill Swift, Caroline Anstey. I do want to ask, because I do think this is as important a discussion, perhaps potentially for the town. This has the potential to change the look of the town, as important a discussion as those we had many years ago on the sewer system. So I do want to make sure, I know the decision has been taken to go ahead with this, even though there are closures, and this is not necessarily a business day for the county government. But I do want to make sure that everybody who's here has had a chance to read the PUD in advance. They're having a public hearing on a document which is very important, and they've had access to it and been able to read it in advance. Is that the case? No? Laura, where was the document available for people? Here? Just here before the meeting?
Well,
Every draft of this has been circulated.
it's been
for
discussed,
months,
and
yeah.
no one has asked me for any additional copies that, I mean, it was here at the last meeting.
It was amended a little bit since then. But I'm just saying because Greg, you talked about the importance of balancing expediency with participation. And we're doing this on a day when business is essentially closed, and we're not sure that people have really familiarized themselves with this document. So I think the members of the Planning Commission would express some concern about that. But with that said, let me open the discussion to the public about the ordinance for an amendment to the zoning ordinance of the town of Washington to permit a planned unit developments.
Are there any questions or comments from the public? Yes, sir.
A question to the council. It's my understanding that, as with any other ordinance, there would be no impediment or reason going forward why, if some element of this particular ordinance proved inadequate, the council would not at some subsequent time be able to amend it. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yeah.
All right.
It can be fine-tuned, rearranged.
So it is not in granite.
No.
It is an ordinance that would control until such time as it was either abolished or amended.
Yeah, and you know, you hope you can anticipate what comes in the future, but you can't. And as things come along, it's a process that these things change.
Perhaps I could ask Gary, because that reminds me, at the last meeting before December, we had had some discussion with the public about the issue of what would happen to areas of the town that are not in the historic district if they were to have a PUD, and what would be the remit of the architectural review board then. And I think we were told that the architectural review board can have no remit beyond a historic district. But you said, Gary, and it would be good to have you reiterate this then, that the council, it is within the power of the council to apply the ARB guidelines to any area they so desire, not to require that something goes through the ARB, but the same guidelines are applied. And I think that was something that people took some comfort from, the idea that as we go forward with development, there would be some oversight by the council, planning commission, others, to on the look of additional dwellings in the town, even if they're outside the historic district.
Having read and reviewed the document, it's my understanding, it's simply the opinion of a citizen, but it is my opinion that the document puts ultimate authority for final review and approval in the council. Therefore, before any proposal would be accepted by council, council can impose whatever design review criteria it thinks is in the best interest of the town. If that involves polling members of the ARB, if it involves applying the specific guidelines that are then applicable to the historic district, the key distinction is the ARB has no jurisdiction.
Yes.
So no applicant would have to come before the ARB because outside the historic district, the ARB has no jurisdiction. However, council absolutely has jurisdiction over the entire process, and therefore council could require of any proponent whatever degree of review they wanted. And I would assume and expect that council would have no reason to diminish its review process. In fact, council could actually impose additional steps if they wish. I'm not saying they would, but they would have that authority. So, yeah, I think that that's where the confusion arose.
Yes, I understand. That's very helpful. But this is up to a decision at the time by council, or this can be somehow encapsulated in the way that PUDs will be dealt with going forward.
If I understand the question, it could be either. My preference is not to bind future councils with the judgment of a this time and place, things change. I would trust that whomever the citizens of the town elected to council would bring that wisdom to apply to whatever proposal would occur at that time. I believe this particular ordinance does, however, structure the process sufficiently so that it puts more flexibility in the hands of the council and takes away discretion on the part of the developer. I hate that word, but the proponent.
No, that's a very good citizen interpretation. Thank you, that's very helpful. Other comments?
Let me just add one thing, if I may. Right now, that is not an issue because everything that would be eligible for a PUD is within the historic district and would be reviewed. It's explicit that they have to meet the guidelines of the ARB, and they still have to submit an application to go through the ARB process before anything can be, a building permit can be approved.
And I think I think the concern was if there were properties that came into the town that are not within the historic district. And I think Mr. H.O. has answered that question very well for us. I appreciate it.
I think that both are very important clarifications and much appreciated. I think, John, that's an important qualification because there are at present parts, we don't have the map here, but there are parts of the town which are not within the historic district.
But they are not within the sewer service district. Sewer service district is just the town core.
Okay, so we're just so everybody understands, we're talking about the applicability for the PUD being synonymous with the sewer service district. And I think that's very important that people understand that. Other issues?
Yes, would you say this was originally put forth in a thought that contained building more, and I hate to use the term, affordable housing. It's come to be a negative term, but a lot of the early conversation I remember about it, that was included. So I'm wondering where we are now, because it really isn't part of this.
No, I think, and please others correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is this ordinance is to look at the ability to build PUDs. And the importance of the PUD is it allows for a greater density on land that normal zoning would require to have access points and certain dispersal of properties. So this would allow you to build a PUD, which is a planned unit development, and so get more accommodation on a smaller area while still maintaining an aesthetic. And I think many issues have been discussed in the past. Affordable housing's been discussed, assisted living has been discussed, downsizing for those who want to sell their large properties and go into something smaller. So the ordinance does not specify use, but there have been discussions around multiple uses, but that would depend on the developer, the investors, and obviously some of those decisions would involve town council as well.
I also think it's important to, as I read this at least, to recognize that this is putting a very heavy load on the members of town council and their judgment. There is a specific thing saying that all new structures have to meet design standards as are in the ARB requirement. That's structure. There's no direct requirement in here that the overall look of the development, however many buildings that may be, over how many acres that may be, has to look like something that belongs next to Little Washington. There's no design review for that at all, other than council's approval. And that puts a great deal of pressure on council and their design decision or their design understanding to make those judgments for the towns. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying I hope the town council recognizes that rather technical and heavy responsibility. Because this is sort of an open, I mean, it's really an open invitation meet the rules that we've specified here and show us what you want to do. And there's no level review below that, below council.
There was some discussion last month about the historic district and the ability to do historic overlays so that we can, if someone asks us, and let's say we decide to extend the boundary somewhere, we then have the ability, John, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going from memory here on the historic district overlay, but we can put an overlay
On the entry.
on the entries, which,
Entry corridors.
the entry corridors, so anything going out Main Street, the Sneed property, just for one, or going out past the fire department if we take it all to 211, that's an entry corridor we can extend with an overlay, the historic district, which takes care of those issues.
Is that in here, in the ordinance?
No, that's something that we just discussed.
And I think that relates to Alan's point about
Exactly.
this is this all arbitrary? Does this happen if the town council decides it should happen? Or should there be some way of encapsulating this in an ordinance to make sure it does happen? I think is that what you're saying?
And yet, Alan, as I was hearing from Mr. Achel, is that the town council, be it now or in the future, would have the ability to poll, as he said it, the members of the Architectural Review Board to get their input. And I would think that a town council, I personally would think that a town council member, unless they had an advanced degree in architecture and building planning design, would want to seek out the guidance and the expertise of members of the Architectural Review Board before they made a decision.
And I would certainly hope that that's true, but I'd like to see it in the process as defined in this ordinance, as opposed to the goodwill or interest of whoever happens to be on council that year.
Every building, to pull a building permit, it's got to be approved by the ARB.
I'm not worried about buildings, I'm worried about the project.
Yeah, and the ARB, I think, if this is some reassurance, factors that it can consider are mass and context, which are the layout of buildings next to each other. It's not just buildings in isolation, it's the grouping and combination of what's close to them and how does it fit into the overall context of the town.
But so, in number 9, it doesn't say who will make that judgment.
But it has to comply with it, but it has to go before the ARB. Nothing can happen under this ordinance.
You can't get a building permit.
Nothing can happen unless it's approved by the ARB. No. There's nothing that loosens up the ARB.
I don't need a building permit to build, I need a building permit to build a house, right? But if I want to build 10 houses, I need 10 different building permits, one for each of those houses. Each structure, as we define them in number 7. But I don't need a building permit for a development of multiple units that is going to have a huge visual impact on one edge of this town. Whatever happens, it will be a major visual impact.
So you're talking about, wait a moment, I don't understand. If I want to build 6 units,
Right.
3 duplexes, I don't need a building permit?
No, you do, one for each structure. As we say, I'm just worried about this term, structure. We're not talking about the PUD, you're talking about structures within the PUD. And then you have to go down to number 9, where it says it has to be integrated and whatever else. But there's no there's no indication here of who or how is that judgment made so that it is integrated. And who defines integrated? How is that done? We have an ARB that works with those kinds of concepts, but they're not specified in that number.
But it doesn't have to be.
It does have to be.
It goes to the ARB, there's nothing that diminishes the ARB.
Are we or are we not in a public hearing?
We are in a public.
Are we in a public hearing when the document was published?
Yes.
If the members of the planning commission and the members of council are not yet ready to to have a public hearing on the document, then I recommend that we adjourn the public hearing until such time as there's a document that the public can address. Because so far, except for answering a question, there's been no public address to the document that's on the floor.
Well, I think that's, I think this is the planning commission's public hearing. So I would just say, Gary, that we asked for questions. There have been no questions. Some of what you're hearing now is the reaction to your comments, which were very, very useful from this side of the table. Yes. Sure.
I remember from last time that something with the situation of the
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
elderly housing, that someone said about the traffic or whatever, it was mentioned about putting up lights. And I was wondering, lights?
I don't believe there was a discussion of traffic lights.
Traffic lights?
No.
No.
That's what I heard. I heard somebody say about traffic lights.
Oh, that was about the post office, I think, and it being located on 211, outside of the town.
Okay, but it was gonna be in the town.
No.
It's not gonna be in the town.
I don't recall any discussion about lights within the town at the last meeting.
Down at the end of,
No, I think what they were talking about is lights on 211 near what they call the old toll house, where if the post office was put in next to the bank, that they would have to have a light at that intersection.
okay, so it didn't have anything.
I don't believe there was any discussion of light in the town. Are there any other questions from the public on this?
I don't have a question, but as part of the public, I rise in support of the ordinance that was published. It gives the town a way to move forward. Having served on a couple of task forces and been closely associated with the adoption of the new comprehensive plan, Avon Hall prompted conversation in the community, both within the town and beyond, as to what should happen with the town's property. Some of those questions were resolved by the sale, and some of them remain. Comprehensive plan moved forward, and one of its key points was, in order for the town to remain viable, additional housing options to induce more people to come and live here, as opposed to work or hold business here, was a major finding. A subsequent task force was founded, which I participated in, and it was the strong recommendation of the members of that task force that the town find a way not to sit and discuss growth for the next 20 years, but actually find a vehicle to attract the kind of money and interest that would add additional housing options that would be compatible and fully supportive of the unique nature, history, character of this town. The PUD was developed with that intent. The one that was published would achieve those goals. It may not achieve them perfectly, but that could be rectified when the mistakes or the errors or the omissions were discovered. It does put enormous trust in our town council. However, council is not limited to its own expertise or intelligence, as has happened in the past, most notably, most recently with Avon Hall. Professional counsel and professional advice from trained planners was obtained. Yes, it was paid for. You generally get what you pay for. And it was on the basis of those findings that the ultimate recommendation about the disposition of Avon Hall took place. I see no reason why in the future, with this ordinance, a similar process couldn't be used. I agree with Mr. Comp. There are some areas that could be further refined, further detailed, and further documented in this proposed ordinance. However, here's the balance. Every time a municipality adds additional hurdles, you reduce the number of people likely to bring forth a proposal. At this point, I think it is more in the town's interest and the county's interest, compatible with the county's comprehensive plan, that new residential growth take place in those places most able to support it. At the moment, the town of Washington is the only one really able to support that kind of growth, because it's the only one with a sewer system. So it would seem to me prudent that the town move forward to try and encourage that kind of proposal, so that it could then review it, refine it, and would actually, before we're all dead, have additional residents living in the town of Washington. That would be a citizen of the county's view on this proposed ordinance.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's...
Town council members enough to speak, or we have to wait to do our...
We're in a public discussion right now. So let's, after the public hearing is completed, then we can have a discussion with the planning commission and the town council, as I recall, Mr. Bennett, correct?
Yes.
Is that correct?
So we're not, none of the
Well,
town
the
council
public
members are on the
has the
seat?
right to speak first.
Yes, okay. Other comments? Nancy?
Does the town council feel confident in its ability to handle this?
Oh, I think so. That's why people agreed to this.
I mean, you know, assuming you pass this, do you have confidence to see a project through and make sure it meets all the guidelines?
I think the members within the town council and other citizens, each time that we have had to address a difficult project, we have sought outside guidance, either from other boards who have knowledge or from outside consultants. We have done it through the Avon Hall. Mr. Rachel brought that up. We also had it when we were looking at this process through the housing task force. We brought in, sought advice from people from the outside in this whole thing. And they helped us do some enormous changes, benefit this whole process. So I see that certainly there is a track record so far of members within this council, within the planning commission, who have sought that expert advice from the outside.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, point of order here, I don't mean to rain upon anybody's parade, but this is the planning commission hearing, so all the questions should be addressed to the chair of the planning commission, and any response will come from her or the members as appropriate. And then we'll have the town clerk.
My apology.
Sean?
Yes,
I know that
I was wondering, there are people that are in the area at the entranceway down by the fire hall that probably don't know that there's plans to put in assisted living facility there. I don't know that, was this published in the paper or something that they could read?
I think the assisted living that came up at last town council meeting about Charlie Tompkins' land there was not, we have heard no more, my understanding is we've heard no more about that. There was never any documentation around that. It was an oral proposal made from the public, during the public discussion. And I think, Sharon, although it was covered in the newspaper, we, on the town council, the planning commission, have received no more paperwork about that. So, and that is not a part of the discussion of the part that came up at the last minute, I think, as an alternative to the post office. So I wouldn't want to start getting into that discussion now under the PUD, because we really don't know, we don't have any more information, Sharon. We don't know if this,
Okay, that's why I was
such a
wondering if
proposal
this was the
exists.
reason- If this was the reason that we had this paper written up, is because...
No, the work that's gone on the PUD, as Gary explained, it's gone on for quite a long time, starting in the housing task force, and then it's been worked on by the planning commission and the town council. Actually, it hasn't gone on that long, it's been less than 6 months, but it has been expeditious by normal Washington standards. I think the point is, I do want to refer back to what you said, Gary, about, you know, why are these things coming up now? And I think they're coming up now because at the meeting before Christmas, the $64,000 question was, what would happen to areas not in the historic district? And you were very helpful on that. And we all, I think there was a consensus, we wanted to see some kind of assurance that design wouldn't completely go awry in those areas if they weren't covered by the ARB. The reason we're sounding a little tentative now is because I think there was an assumption that some of that would be put in the ordinance. It's not in the ordinance, it turns out, And as you pointed out, it means that there's a lot of discretionary power for the council. And we know and we trust the council very much, but that's a lot of power to potentially change the way our town looks. So while I totally take your point that we do want to balance expediency and participation, we also, and we don't want to Christmas tree the ordinance. Nobody's talking about putting a whole load of extra things in. It is this one area about what is there something that can be put in the ordinance to make sure that those things happen. It's not discretionary, is what you're hearing from Alan. You even you referred to it a minute ago, and I think the question here is this something we just let go and go through, or is this something we take one more month on and advantage of the fact that hopefully when we met then, it wouldn't be a public, it wouldn't be business closed in the area. But that's going to be a question for my fellow members of the Planning Commission to vote on in a minute.
I make comments on that. Areas that aren't in the historic district, not subject to the ARB jurisdiction, are not affected at this point. Every last square inch of the sewer service district is within the historic district, as I understand it. And the ordinance is quite clear. It's not discretionary, that they shall apply the standards, guidelines before the ARB. And I want to emphasize this point because you don't have to say anything about it, because there's nothing in this ordinance that in any shape, form, or fashion diminishes the authority of the ARB. Any project that comes along has to meet ARB approval, and in my view, within their purview of jurisdiction, is massing, integration, overall layout of any project. And so that takes in, somebody can't piecemeal. I've actually had that case on the wrong side of another jurisdiction. That it's within their authority to require an overall plan before they approve any piece of a parcel that's about to be developed. So the question about areas that aren't in the historic district and not subject to the ARB, that's an issue, but that's not an issue that has to be addressed tonight.
So could I press you on that? If the boundaries were to be, and this is hypothetical, nobody's doing this now, it's a hypothetical issue. If the boundaries were to be punched out of the town and the town expands, would a new PUD ordinance then be required? Because you're saying those areas obviously wouldn't be in the historic district. They might be in the town if the boundary was expanded, but they wouldn't be in the historic district.
But we don't have sewer there.
And you don't have sewer there, so those people could not, the PUD would not be applicable to those areas because there's not sewer.
Unless there's an amendment to the sewer service district.
And if there was an amendment, would there be an amended PUD, or would it, because the historic district does not follow the sewer, it just happens to coincide now.
It wouldn't be necessary to amend the PUD ordinance because the same standards would apply. This actually, in my view, you have all the protections in place of the ARB, not diminished in any way. And this adds another layer of, not layered, it adds other standards that can be applied in the review of these projects. This is in addition to the ARB, not in any way diminishing the ARB. So in my view, this is still a step up from what exists at the moment.
Okay, it's helpful. Sharon?
I'm sorry, one more question. I was wondering, is the septic system that we have now, if you do expand it out, would it be able to handle all that extra? Because I know when it's really wet, I hear the sirens constantly in the area going off because it's malfunctioning in some kind of way. So with all this rain that we've had, and it's really hard on the system as it is, and if we add extra onto this particular system, would that be stressing it out?
I think Brad, would you also?
No, there's sufficient capacity, and in fact, the infiltration of groundwater is, the system is sealed, okay? It's not picking up groundwater, because each grinder pot would have to be compromised. The water would have to get into the grinder pot in order to get into the sewer system, to the main processing system.
It's not a septic system, it's a sewer system.
Yeah.
The water you're saying is not sewer.
I was just wondering why the alarms keep going off.
Well, if there's an alarm going off, it means there's some problem with that grinder pot. Okay, grinder motors or something along that line. But it's not a question of infiltration of water. There's probably something mechanically wrong, and that's why the alarm goes off. That's the way they're designed.
There's this one over here behind they keep changing the name of the house, but it's right there behind the post office kind of. That one's been going off for about a month.
It's been going on for more than a month.
Yes, I was
Going on.
gonna say.
So I think there are two different issues here.
They haven't reported it to me.
There are two different issues. You were asking about the capacity of the sewer system. The capacity of the sewer system right now, if I recall correctly, is below 30% capacity. Is that correct? Okay, so we're below 30% capacity. And I think through some studies, it was determined that a population of roughly 250 would allow us, not that we're going to get to that level, but that the sewer system could handle a population of about 250.
Any other questions? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing for the Planning Commission section of the public hearing. If that's what I'm
For discussion by the
instructed to
planning
do.
commission, yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. I close the public hearing vis-a-vis the Planning Commission. Do Planning Commission members want to say anything?
Well, I do, but you probably won't like to hear what I have to say. But anyway,
Well, I think this is your moment. You're allowed to speak now.
I'm very concerned that as a commission, there are unresolved questions in here. I appreciate the assurances about the ARB, but I can't find them written in the document so that there is a clear, defined process for doing that. What I would like to do is spend a little more time with you to see if we couldn't define that better before we present this to council with our recommendation. There is no need to rush on this thing. This is a huge decision for this town. I think it is as big as the sewer system, frankly, and could have a much larger visual impact on the setting of this town over the next 20 years, easily, about the history of the sewer system right now. So I think that would be my hope, is that we could work on this a little bit more, bring it back at the next meeting with a confident recommendation of the plan, of all the members of the planning commission.
If that were to happen, does it require another public hearing then at that point? But it could be done in one meeting like this.
If there's not a recommendation to go up to council tonight, the council can't consider the matter, they would have to carry over their public hearing to the next meeting. Let me say this, maybe in a slightly different way. Maybe I'm just not clear on this, but there is a historic district ordinance, which is a part of the ordinances of the town. Nothing in this document diminishes that, takes anything away from it, refers it to somebody else or anything else. It adds another level of review by the planning commission and the town council before anything could be considered or approved. Historic district ordinance, you don't have to refer to it because it applies already by town ordinance to anything that could be constructed in the town or any improvement that's visible. All that is there. It is not changed in any way. And you don't have to say a thing about it because, Brother Rachel, if you could correct me,
I appreciate all of that, but we're
Judy,
talking about what happens if there's a boundary adjustment and 7 acres of new land is added to the town's interior. And who, where is that process defined in terms of design review? And it's not.
That issue is not on the table. That is a huge issue that is just beyond the scope of what's before Planning Commission and Council tonight.
Judy?
I do not agree with you, and I'm sorry you missed that. I thought this was resolved in our December meeting, because I am associating my remarks with what John Bennett said. I do not want to add extra hoops, because what you are suggesting makes it sound as if you are coming in to apply for a planned unit development, you would have to first show everything to the Architecture Review Board. And I'm worried that that piece was in there, because that is not the intent. And I would recommend this move forward to the council. And
Any other comments from the Planning Commission?
I agree with Judy.
So I think we're ready to take a vote. And you have to correct me if I'm doing something wrong.
So
I move that the Planning Commission sent this forward with our approval to the town council.
Is there a second?
I second.
Do we take a roll call? Roll call. Judy?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nay.
Okay.
So, there's one other thing. We have to discuss this. Planning Commission has to hold an organizational meeting and announce when its regular meeting is going to be scheduled. And I would suggest that we adopt the same procedures as for setting over meetings and setting over public hearings as the council is going to consider tonight. So I just bring that up, but at your next meeting, I think you should make that an organizational meeting.
Okay.
The same thing.
But is that related to what we've just done?
No, I just want to bring it up. So while everybody's in the same place.
Okay. And what you're suggesting is we adopt a resolution as with the continuance resolution that you just adopted. Okay, that's very helpful. All right, I think we're done. Planning Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Planning Commission is adjourned. Formal adjourned.
Thank you. Yes, we're adjourning. Formally seconded. Motion seconded.
What I heard was a motion from the chair to agenda, and I heard a second from Judy to Sarno.
Thank you. Agreed.
Those of you who may not know, Caroline just took over from me as the chair of the Planning Commission, so we threw her in the deep end.
Was that obvious?
No, you did a wonderful job. Thank you. So we now have a public hearing for the town council. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
All right. Are there comments from members of the public towards this issue?
The same one that was on the floor.
Same one that was on the floor from the Planning Commission. Yes, Ms. H.
Only because of the importance of this ordinance, and only because this is a separate hearing technically, I would say again what I said before, but to you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It should not be the record that no one from the public addressed this issue this night.
And I will remind, we will notify the recorder. Well, actually, it's on the minutes or on the recording, so we should have it.
There's a legal term for that.
What is it?
I can't quite remember.
Whatever it is, check with council and get that in the minutes.
All right, if there are...
Here it is.
Yes, Sharon?
I'm sorry, I don't know that it doesn't apply to this, but the town lights again, or not functioning properly. I was at the meeting for Dark Skies, and
I'm sorry, we have a public forum at the end of the meeting. That would go ahead. If this isn't relating specifically to the PUD that's in front of us now, there will be a
You're
chance.
talking about the
Planned
ordinance.
unit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other? Alan, did I see you raise your hand?
No.
Any other comments? All right. Then I will go ahead and close the public hearing for the town council. At this point, we have a recommendation in front of us from the Planning Commission to adopt an amendment to the zoning ordinance to adopt this plan unit development. Do we have a motion to adopt
Yes,
this?
I would like to make a motion that.
Can I ask a question? Should we have a discussion on this?
What we do is we have a motion and a second, and then we have discussion.
Oh,
It's actually the Robert Rules.
okay.
But,
So made a motion.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the PUD ordinance as we have in front of us.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, now discussion.
Going to Alan Cobb's concern about how a PUD integrates into the community. Mr. Evans said that the structures would be required to be approved by the ARB, and that by inference, because I don't believe it's the duty, or maybe it is defined, of the ARB to look at a cluster of buildings or multiple structure development, a PUD, as part of their review. So the question, I guess, may not be to this document, but does the ARB need to have an amendment to their tasks and duties and responsibilities when reviewing this kind of a reviewing a PUD, as opposed to just being able to then, by sign, I looked at this building, we looked at this building, we looked at this building, and they all comply. But it's not clear that they need to either by their own expertise or bring in expertise, as we would under council, not having architectural backgrounds and stuff. But should the ARB, should that be clarified, that that's part of their duty and responsibility? Maybe Mr. Bennett can clarify that.
I don't have the guidelines right in front of me, but I recall reading at some point, if it's still in there, that part of the guidelines is that they have to evaluate massing, and its relation of massing of adjoining and surrounding structures, and then the integration into sort of the fabric of the town.
Okay.
So, in my view, I actually had this case in Culpeper where I represented a landowner that just wanted one piece of a larger piece considered, and it was not. So, by my experience, it's within the authority of the ARB to proceed in that fashion. Because the building doesn't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
It's what's here, it's what's there, it's what's here, it's what's there, it's what's all around, how does it fit in? And that's within the purview of the ARB.
Right. And I just want to make clear that, historically, the ARB has looked at individual structures. Now, if they're going to be facing a PUD, it's a little different approach. And I'm just thinking that it should be clear that they are going to look at those buildings as a group. They may approve building 1, building 3, but not building 2. Okay, you go back and change that. But then how do those 3 buildings impact the community at large, and like we say, the adjoining properties? So I just like to see that that's there, so that in the first phase of someone, approaching us on a PUD or something like that, that's been done before it actually reaches us as a body. And then it does not restrict us from doing our own, or bringing in our own expertise to.
Absolutely.
For our.
Let me make one comment. It's been my experience that virtually every zoning administrator, and that happens to be me at the moment, but as soon as you get an application of this significance, it goes to everybody. It goes to ARB, it goes to the Plan Commission, it's circulated, it's a newspaper article. You want everybody talking about it, the input, a lot of input right away. So there's nothing that's holding anything back. In my view, and it's in my view, it's the responsibility of the zoning administrator to make sure it gets out to everybody.
Can I comment? We've only had one new building inside, been here for 16 years. But over on the left there's a book as part of the HBO of streetscape, so that when people put in a new property, that they go to that and they look to see what the adjacent, it's all there. I mean, it is part of the HDO. If you go over there, you'll see that every street is captured. So
Right.
For those who are wondering, HDO is Historic District Ordinance.
Thank you.
Well, that was, like I say, that was really what I was.
Yeah, Brad, I really think it's covered. It's covered. It's there.
Okay.
I mean, you can't tell the ARB to do anything, but it's within the purview if they want to take it up. And as a practical matter, everything comes up to the council for final approval. So there's a whole lot of things you can look at.
Okay. All right. That's really one of my questions on this ordinance.
It may be worthwhile, and I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, but it may be worthwhile to figure out some kind of protocol so that if we do get a development request that is concerned of not only looking at each structure individually, but looking at within the context of the whole address. And I think that's an important point.
Could that be something that,
You can take that up tonight by resolution, so it's by ordinance. You don't have to advertise. A resolution, so you could have a resolution directing the zoning administrator however you want to do it, do whatever you want.
I'm not sure I'm ready to address it tonight in a resolution, but I'd like to talk to some minds and see if we can come up with a resolution perhaps by the next meeting.
And I think if there's a concern, you can articulate it in a resolution.
right, so that, as the mayor said, essentially a protocol or some procedural steps that are taken. Okay. I actually like that idea that we have something, because then we have something to reference, and it's not arbitrary that anyone can feel, well, they're being singled out, or the council's not acting, appropriately. So,
Following that up, John, could we put that in this ordinance that, that this would be under the purview of the ARB to look at it as a whole?
No, it's already, that's already in the ordinance, under the historic district ordinance. The ARB has to review any buildings that come along. I don't think anybody that's working on a project is going to try and get a piece of the approval without knowing what the other piece is. So typically in these situations you have dual submission that's going on at the same time, so it all comes up at the same time.
The other point that comes to mind regarding this protocol is I'm not sure the town can afford to do it, but a lot of communities have what they consider like a master plan. And a master plan gives, takes, I mean, we've done parts of it with a comprehensive plan, we've done parts of it with this ordinance and the architectural review, the historic district ordinance and the guidelines. But a master plan would allow one to begin having a sense of making sure everything is within context of everything else. So that you don't have something that looks really out of whack.
To me, that is, in this particular case, it's like overkill. It's like another law repeating the rules you already have.
Yeah.
And we already have that. These structures have to be considered with all the structures around them. And that all the historic district rules and ordinances are
Yeah, maybe it's a good time.
Mr. Mayor,
to recommend the ARB to just review their
if I may mention something, that what you're speaking of is I think if I remember the section correctly, it's 15.2.2232 plan, and that encompasses all future public facilities. You have to lay out streets, proposed streets, parks, everything in that plan going forward, and it's quite an undertaking to figure the whole thing out.
But as I said, I don't think we're financially at a point where we are going to undertake that. Unless I heard Alan volunteer to do that.
I wouldn't change the ordinance, but I think
Adding the resolution.
adding a resolution for essentially a protocol. I think that's probably in our interest.
May I say something too? I agree with you, Brad. I think I'd like to see more spine to this ordinance. I agree with what Alan said. This ordinance is so important for this town. We are opening the door for the first time for development. It is huge. And somebody said, well, you on the town council, we think you're honest and we think you're good and you'll do the right thing. We may not be on the town council in 4 years or 10 years. And we're opening this little door, and you've seen what happens in Culpeper, in Loudoun County. So we have to be so careful tonight on this ordinance and be extra careful and dot your I's and cross your T's. And I know that Gary and some other people here in the audience really want us to move forward and everything, but please, I urge you, look at this document, look at number 9, how open it is. And what Alan was saying, look at number 2 where it says the minimum parcel size is 2 acres, but it never says how many units can be on 2 acres. I mean, this is a huge step forward for the town. And I just want us to do the right thing. I know people want us to move faster, but I want to do it the right way. And I hope all of you are on the same page. What's 30 days? What is 30 days when this is the future?
I guess my response is that this is a document that has been in front of the council for at least a month, if not longer. It has been in discussion in the Planning Commission for 3 or 4 months through the fall. And I think that some of the comments that I heard from the public about the fact is that the more spine, if you call it, the more barriers that other people might call it, that you put into something, the more likelihood is that you're going to drive away what few people might be interested in coming to the town. I do not...
Maybe we don't want those people then to be in charge of the development, if that's the way you feel.
I don't, as I was about to say, I don't feel that there has been a rush that has gone through this process. I think that there has been a lot of deliberative discussion. Going back to, I believe, April is when the Housing Task Force first began meeting and working with this. So it's been, 9 months of effort on this document. And
but we and the town council have not sat here as like tonight and really gone over it. And also because it's such an important document, sometimes it takes more than 1 or 2 meetings to really let it marinate and truly understand it and the impact of it. And the more discussion, the better it is, I feel, to get the document that would be our future.
I have similar concerns, Mary Ann, but I feel as though, and this is where you come in, John, that what has been described is that each point that has come up that says it's a little vague here, it is actually covered in another document. So
perhaps we should put that in the ordinance then, see section something.
You don't have to say that. The Historic District Ordinance applies according to its terms, and would apply to all. It's just something, unless I slept through.
I still don't get how you cover land that is, that when you do a boundary adjustment,
We're not
I know you're not saying that, but this is opening that possibility. That's one of the drivers behind this, is the opportunity to do boundary adjustments and to expand the physical geography of this town along with the number of housing units within it. This town is the only place in all of Rappahannock County that has a viable sewage disposal system. Sperryville's is marginal. And this town has a much more viable system. It's also at 30% of capacity. You are the development target for any large development in this county, period. And if you're not careful, you're going to end up with an ordinance that doesn't allow you to protect yourself. That's my concern. I live at the edge of town. I know what's beyond that edge and what could happen beyond that edge, and that concerns me a lot.
That was a concern that when the sewer system came along and discussing how to implement it, that was an issue that was discussed at length, that it was not to become an instrument of development and sprawl. And that's why the council, ultimately in the sewer ordinance, went to the sewer service district. They can only have sewer in that district. You can't go outside of that district without amending the district as part of an overall plan. So the large pieces of property that surround the town do not have sewer. And they do not, because of the soils and whatever, they do not have the capability for, and it's 5 acre zoning now, rural residential. That was part of looking at this whole thing. The town council downzoned everything in rural residential from 2 acres to 5 acres. So that was an issue that was looked at very closely and was addressed as carefully as possible. That the reason there is this, another reason there is this sewer service district is there was the thought of council that it was to encourage infill development in the town's core and to see how that all played out and how much of the capacity was used up before there was ever a consideration of it going outside of the core. So that was something that was really looked at when the ordinance came along.
Sure.
And that's why there's the approach that there is, that there's phase 1, phase 2, etc.
John. So there's been the comment about a boundary adjustment. So someone says, well, I want a boundary adjustment because I want to put up a PUD. It's not serviced by the sewer district. And I guess it puts that piece in 2 roadblocks. Town says, no, we're not going to expand the sewer district, then they won't be able to, they wouldn't be under this, but they wouldn't be able to develop on this basis. And secondly, if we said we're not going to expand the town boundary because the decision of the council is we don't want a PUD, we'd rather have individual residences as opposed to a PUD, then again, it becomes a moot issue, right?
Yeah. And there's a third component that in the boundary agreement, the county's got to agree to it too. It's a mutual agreement.
Right, because we're taking essentially land from the county under our jurisdiction.
Typically, it's a very precise agreement as to what's going to happen with the area and that type of thing.
Yeah.
It discusses the zoning, possible densities.
So the idea that this ordinance is going to turn into a land rush, that's maybe a bad term, but bring in individuals who are going to want us to expand our boundaries for the purpose of construction of whatever type of residential units. Again, with that third component of the county having to be involved in all of this, it really restricts. And it's probably
a long road to walk.
It's a long process, and as you say, and having gone through the zoning courses and everything else, it is not something that's done easily and lightly. It is a very intricate process.
As I've mentioned a number of times, one more time, forgive me, but in Culpeper, I worked on boundary adjustment for 15 years.
Yeah.
And when I was no longer county attorney, became full-time, I stayed on retainer to see it through to the end, which was another 6 or 7 years.
I guess one of the things that I see in this, Marianne, to try to allay some of your concerns is that in Article 4, you're talking about it's going through a process with the zoning administrator. It's going through a process with the planning commission. It's going through a process with the town council. Because it will have to be part of the sewer district, it will have to meet all the requirements of the zoning ordinance as well as the architectural review board's guidelines for new construction. So it's not like you're letting this thing go loose. There's a lot of different checks and gates they have to go through before they would get approval. And again, it goes back to the point. The town council, you're right, you don't know at this point if a town council in the future might choose to ignore all of the safeguards that are placed in front of it. But I find that hard to believe that that would happen. And as I said, we can have a resolution that comes along that creates a protocol for the review of this public.
And remember, I just keep having to remind everybody that we can overlay the historic district on our major entrances, which are Fodderstack there, Main Street. So we can get, but
So
we're talking finance.
why are we just saying that we can do this? Why don't we put all these suggestions and things, or a few of them in here, and give it more spine, as I said?
Because the entrance corridors aren't contiguous to the sewer service district.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The entrance corridors aren't necessarily contiguous to the sewer service district, and that's really a hugely separate issue. Let me comment on one thing about fear of the future. This doesn't change anything, because at any time you have an ordinance that can be restrictive as you want it, but anybody can file an application for an amendment or an exception or a waiver. A council at any time, whether you have this or not, can go sort of hog wild. And if you can't trust the future of the town to its citizens, then
That's exactly right. This is an elected board. So they're going to do what the people want. Whether it's what everybody here wants now, it's what the people will want in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, I think if the council and the planning commission did anything, I'll just say abnormal, I think they'd be in a difficult position all the way around.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of the...
Is there a clear and concise definition of a PUD someplace?
Yes, that's contained in the definition on the last page. It says that plan unit development is developed in accordance with and subject to the provisions of this ordinance that we are now considering.
Plan unit development, maybe I can put it in lay terms. Plan, and I'm going to look at Alan and Gary because they were with me on the housing task force and we did a lot of evaluation of PUDs. But a planned unit development was basically designed as a means to remove a lot of the unnecessary obstacles and to streamline the process while ensuring the qualities that the municipality wanted to ensure were in the building process without having to have the builder go through an incessant number of unnecessary steps along the way. In other words, it was trying to figure out a way to streamline, to facilitate, while maintaining the important qualities of the community.
So it could encompass retirement communities, nursing homes, low-income housing. and a variety of other developments.
Mm-hmm.
Condominiums, townhouses, suburban style developments.
It could. You could have someone who presents something like that, and as members of the town council, there would be certain things, when you use the term suburban style, it raises some hairs on the back of my neck, personally. Thinking of boxes out in the field or something like that. That is, we would have the ability, and there are steps in here to prevent something like that occurring.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
to answer Mr. Connell, a plan unit development, as I understand, is simply a specific zone ordinance, which is typically adopted as an exception to existing requirements of zoning. And whatever it is, as Mr. Bennett said, it is whatever that particular ordinance requires. So there is nothing further. We all have sort of conceptions of what happens in a PUD. But technically speaking, a PUD simply is an ordinance that allows a municipality to create an exemption to its existing zoning for a very particular project and purpose, which is approved specifically one-off. So it could be anything. This, as I understand this proposal, it limits very little, except it's clearly drawn to residential. Its purpose is not commercial, it's residential. Although there is one provision that if council so chose, there could be a mixed, some sort of mixed use there. But by definition, it does not conceive or envision anything except it provides a legal zoning mechanism for a municipality to create a special zone with a special project. And I think sometimes that's not understood.
Gary, I would like to point out something you just said about, it's really geared to residential, but in this ordinance, it says, is to create additional housing and residential options which may be combined with appropriate mixed uses consisting of limited commercial, office, and similar low-intensity uses, mixed with such residential.
I agree, but look at the way the sentence is written. Its purpose is to create additional residential options which, in order to be financially viable, might, again with specific approval by planning and zoning and council, some appropriate mixed use. Appropriate to what? Appropriate to the increased variety of residential uses. So I'm not saying that it would rule out new commercial or business uses. It doesn't. But it seems to me by its language, the purpose, the primary focus is to increase housing options in the town of Washington.
And that's the last line on page 1.
Mr. Mayor, if I may comment, I think this ordinance really provides a mechanism to stay away from the suburban sprawl type development. That under the present ordinance, what are the options? That if you have 10 acres, you have to rezone a piece that's commercial, the rest is residential, and how does all that shake out? Well, it usually shakes out just in the maximum density permitted under residential uses. And so this really gives a tool that you can have development that's really more oriented to a town core, where there are shops, apartments overhead, that type of thing, that are common to a town. And that's really not addressed very well, if at all, in the present ordinance. And this is pretty clear that you can't have just a suburban type sprawl. It's got to be integrated with the entire town. And that's not the town. The town is not suburban sprawl. So, in my view, it would take, someone would have to completely ignore what's set forth here to really walk that road.
John, I have a question, I just want to clarify. So a PUD could be in any of the zoning districts in the town, is that right?
Could be, but right now, that would exclude all rural residential because they can't have sewer. So it's only in sewer service.
And then the lot size is 2 acres.
For a PUD.
Right.
So all the big outlying parcels are excluded.
For the total PUD, not for one unit of a PUD. Right. Right, yes.
Right.
So you could have 12 PUDs in a 12 acre, in a 2 acre plot.
No, you could have 12
Units.
units in
But
a
it's
2 acre.
one
But the
PUD.
PUD is the whole development or
Mother
mother
of the units.
Mothership.
I see what it is.
Is there any more discussion? We have a motion on, in front of the town council. We would have a roll call vote. At this point.
Could we restate the motion, please?
The motion is,
I made a motion that we adopt the ordinance as presented.
and it was seconded by Joe, I believe. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
And you're abstaining. I know because you don't have enough information,
I want a stronger document to protect us.
and you're saying with your resolution there will be.
Yes, we'll be able to talk more about review of the entire development in the context of the whole town.
You mean for the architectural
Yes.
review?
Yes.
I did not hear what you said. Yes, yes. Right. The resolution, or the ordinance passes. Thank you. All right, the next item in front of,
4-1, this one.
I don't think it's fair to you guys to have public hearings that nobody comes to and no one says anything. So I will be brief. I can't imagine a more careful process that protects the interests of the town. I appreciate the extent to which questions have been asked and answered on both sides. It has been thoroughly and completely vetted, and I stand to say now would be the time to approve this action.
thank you very much.
I agree, I second it. It's gone, these folks keep coming back and coming back and coming back. This should have been dealt with.
Mr. Brown is growing fungus.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Brown confided in me that he's come here so regularly, this coming if it's done.
Hard as that is to do.
All right, are there any other comments from the public?
Mr. Mayor, just briefly, we'd like to just simply present that the applicants, we believe, have diligently pursued this process and answered all town council's questions. Ms. Eagle specifically wanted me to apologize for her inability to be here this evening, and that shouldn't be construed as a lack of interest on her part. She just didn't want to get out on the roads today, but asked that I please pass along her enthusiastic request that the council approve this request. Just very briefly, the points that have already been considered. The sub-street, of course, has not been used as a means of public access at any time that we're aware of. As a practical matter, the terrain would render it almost prohibitive and impossible to use it as such. And in fact, the stub that extended across the adjoining property at the end of the sub-street was vacated years ago. We submit that there's a public benefit to the town in that the offer has been made to purchase this substrate for the sum of $7,000, and that increases the town coffers. There's an additional public benefit in what it has done in terms of incentivizing Ms. Eagle, not only to clean up the structure that's on her property, which she has done already, but also you have in your materials the letter of commitment that Ms. Eagle made before the December meeting that she asked me to again reiterate her commitment to this evening. The abutting property owners are all in support of the application, and most recently before the December meeting. Mr. Eatman obtained the consent from the Kaufmans, the folks that are at the end of the stub street. And all of the properties, of course, have a means of access, either a public right-of-way or a private right-of-way to the public road. And most recently, Mr. Bennett has drafted a proposed resolution that's before you in your materials this evening. We were given the opportunity to review and comment on that, and our comments were incorporated in that. So we would ask that the council would favorably at last on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that succinct comment. They work, and I appreciate that. This has been very well. At this point, I will close the public comments section, and I will entertain a motion to approve the vacation abandonment and sale of the Gay Street to Stub Street. Joe, would you move? Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Brad. Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, I don't see it here, and I may be just missing it. You said you have approval from all of the adjoining properties, and that would include Lisa Lethwich, who had access that way. So she's going to continue
She'll
to
continue
be
to have
allowed.
that.
She'll have a deeded.
She'll have a
right
deeded.
away.
Great.
Here's a statement here. That the documentation memorializing the sale shall not violate the rights of any property owner. So it cannot be in a form that we're hearing about this adjournment.
The only other discussion I will bring is, in addition to the succinct comments of Mr. Brown, I'll say that there has not been any opposition expressed from neighbors. As I think he referred to, the stub street could never be extended anyway, because A, of the steep drop in the topography of that piece of property, and secondly, the town, as he indicated, has already vacated the right-of-way across the property that extends beyond the end of the stub street, to such an extent that a house now stands in that right-of-way. If the town ever entertained extending Gay Street over to Fodderstack, they have already lost the right-of-way, and it would go right through someone's house. And we have received fair compensation for the vacated properties. So I want to add those to Mr. Brown's comments. Any other discussion? We will go ahead and have a roll call. Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Abstain.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, it has passed. We're going to miss you.
George may not be back. You know it's like
I have work for the ARB now.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Going on to old business, we have a vacancy on the planning commission, and that vacancy is open until February 4th. So I encourage members of the public, if they are interested. We're coming to an exciting period of time, hopefully, for this town. The guidance and thoughts of townspeople on the planning commission would be greatly appreciated. There's also, under old business, there is a town, we're doing a review of the town's office space. We've had a preliminary discussion about this in December. Is there anything else to be added to that from members of the town council?
I think I did look at the space that opened up beside the Washington Spa, but it was $950 a month plus utilities, so I said no thank you. I am working with Mark Allen, the owner of the Kramer building, to see possibilities there. So I may have some updates at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other comments from anyone? Okay. New business. We need to have a resolution authorizing new bank signatures for the mayor, the treasurer, and the vice mayor. And do we need Mr. Bennett back in here to do that resolution, or do you have a, or do I just?
I think that you said we need to make a motion authorizing three of you to
All right.
be new signature.
Right. Someone outside of us three who feels especially our,
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. So as I heard Mr. Schneider said, he is moving to have the mayor and the treasurer and the vice mayor become signatories on the town's bank accounts.
For me.
For bank accounts. And I have a second. Second from Catherine. Thank you. Any discussion? If not, then we have a roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for holding the suspense.
So tomorrow morning I will take a copy of this to the bench, and as soon as you can get there to sign, so I can get these checked out.
I need to resign.
Yes. I think you do have to send a new card.
That may be a new card.
Yeah.
I will ask you, and then I'll call.
Okay, thanks.
All right. The next item under new business is a possible discussion of OSHA items to be completed at the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, I've been working with ESS and Country Water on several items that Brad and his team have put together on the infrastructure task force. I've got preliminary numbers on the OSHA items and should have, before the next town council meeting, I will have detailed proposals to share with each of you. And I think I'll also have somebody here from either Dawn or Cody here also.
Okay.
We're
So part of, maybe we need to go back and give a little background to why we have this expense. Because I'm not sure.
Well, Joe might not have heard. We have talked about it several times, but
Patrick and Marianne, are you aware of what this is all about?
A review of it would be useful.
You want to give a brief review?
Sure. Brad, were you there for the OSHA inspection?
OSHA, and it's,
Yeah.
what I was going to say. And as part of just ongoing regulations, regulations are added, they're amended, they're updated. One of the things that has come about in recent years, in particular, is something called, now you put me in the spot again, think of it. It's basically, it's called electrical flash. All electrical cabinets that are energized, when they're opened, there's potential for what's called an arc flash. Okay? Think of it as a static shock of immense magnitude.
So we're going to
Potentially-
a brief description.
Yes, yes.
In other words,
Arc flash potentially can kill you. So what has to happen is all of your electrical cabinetry must be labeled and demarcated. And there's rules that if it's over a certain voltage, yes, you can open it. If it isn't, if it's above a certain voltage, then you have to have special suits and equipment and all of this. Currently, the wastewater treatment plant does not have that labeling. And so there are experts who come through, they evaluate, and they will tell you what labels go on and what cabinetry. So that's the primary thing that needs to be done to put us into OSHA compliance.
The other, from my walkthrough, Fred and I did a walkthrough last month, there are some serious safety concerns when you're looking down in these huge tanks
dealing with fall zones.
Yeah, fall zones, where we're going to have, for example, cement posts put down in the ground with an iron hook, someplace to hook on a safety harness, some things like that. And I think there are 6 points that have to have those. There are a couple more things that are, they're fall safe things.
Nothing to grandfather.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately, under OSHA, they don't grandfather very much. It's really tough. And if we go back to the original design of the treatment plant, potentially some of those maybe should have been done, but were overlooked, or corners were rounded as opposed to, just blatantly not done. So this is a certain number of things. And we've worked really closely with Don to figure out, I know my conversations with him, how do we do this economically? What can we do that, minimizes the total expenditures? Simple things that TJ's even done where you have guardrails, but there was no barrier. And so he actually went ahead and bought little lengths of chain that had been put in. So some of the real minor stuff's been done.
So if I can ask you to wrap it up, only because we're getting close to 9 o'clock.
Okay. So essentially these are OSHA requirements. We need to get moving forward because we need to bring in the expert on the arc flash.
Yeah.
That is the paramount issue. Most of it is at the wastewater treatment plant. There are 2 electrical cabinets at the pump house that were not reviewed originally but need to be included.
All right, so thank you so much. All right, so that will be brought up next month,
Hopefully.
okay, with some numbers and
Yes.
some background information. Great. All right, at this point, I would like to open up the town council meeting for the public forum. Jerome, do you have some question about lights?
Yes, sir, especially the one that's down as you go past the courthouse, you're headed toward the Baptist church. I noticed that when you come out of the courthouse at night, it's still kind of dark there.
The street light.
Street lights, yes. I was at the meeting that they had on the second Friday talk about the dark skies, and listening to what they were saying, we could actually get the lights put in. They will actually come and put the lights in for free, is what I understood. No?
Maybe not, maybe for a landowner, they may not for town.
Well,
We're having a meeting with REC.
Oh, you've already
Streetlights.
met with them about
We're getting ready to, because unfortunately, we have ballast in all our streetlights, and they're like dinosaurs. And now they're unavailable. So as these lights are going out, we can't replace them. So we have got to go to these LEDs. So we have to meet with REC and figure out how to,
They said they have the people that do the town, the electrical lights all over the whole.
I know, they're gonna come. But we have these light fixtures that have been approved by the ARB, and we have to make sure that we can change the inside of those fixtures to adapt to these LED lights. And we think we can do it, but we haven't gotten REC to agree.
Okay, but.
So we're in that process.
We are
now.
in the process.
Or we could put in different fixtures, modern fixtures.
And they want to compare within it.
So it sounds like, from what Laura is saying, is that she has had conversations, perhaps not with the people that have talked with you, but with other people, and she and Brad, I know, have been working on trying to address this issue.
We're going to move fast.
As quickly as possible
because,
as we can.
more and more lights are going out.
Yeah.
It's like 10 out.
It is the case at the corner of Gay and Porter is actually not quite dark.
It is very dark.
Almost from the old sheriff's department all the way to Maine. It's just black.
Can't see.
I know.
But
I tried calling.
that explains why.
Yeah, the lighting supply people won't even call me back about it.
that explains the problem. It's not neglect, it's that we need something that will fit our historic lights that you can actually get.
There's a process, and we're in the midst of a process.
That way I can
That's
pass
the
the
process.
information on to people who keep saying to me, why won't the town replace the lights?
Right.
It's not for lack of effort, it's that we can't.
We may have to hire someone to,
I have a question, Laura. If they replaced, what was is it the bright white spectrum, or would it be a yellow softer light?
that we haven't made that decision.
The bottom line is, we have a very old fixture, okay? That fixture took a bulb that required a transformer, because it's taking power right out of the lines. So the power has to be stepped down, or as soon as you screw the bulb in, it'll blow up. So what's happening is these ballasts are not available anymore. And so what we're looking at is a LED bulb that will actually thread in, okay? And when you look at these bulbs, it's not like your typical light bulb here. It's a much larger end fixture. So what normally screws in your house is called an Edison A26 or something, and these are much larger. So they're very unique, but they also have to be able to take the voltage that's going to come off the lines. So there's multiple things going on and that we have to deal with in order to also keep that fixture. Because those fixtures themselves, you cannot buy. They do not make them anymore. So if we had a power pole that was knocked down and the fixture was broken, we can't replace it. They don't make them. We have to go hunt some antique shop or some junkyard.
We have one spare.
Okay, so we have one spare. We can afford one. So it's a compounded problem. It's not just a matter of, oh, put a different bulb in there.
And the other problem is, is we're going to have someone change the inside of these fixtures for us. And we have 50-some fixtures, so, we may have to do like 5 at a time, or 10 at a time. We have 10 lights out right now.
But it sounds like it is being addressed.
We are addressing it.
Okay.
We'll talk.
So, are there other questions or comments from the public? No? Okay, I close the public forum. Do we have anything else, Mr. Bennett?
I don't believe so, Mr. Mayor.
And I believe that we can take.
Do we have any updates on the post office or anything?
No, I have not heard anything.
Okay.
So, and in fact, you probably are the lead on that right now, because I was never privy to this. I'll talk to John and see if I can get connected into it. That being the case, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
I heard her first. So, all those in favor, please indicate by saying